Recently, one morning, I walked into the sacristy, and that morning while I was shaving, I was kind of in deep contemplation, thinking about my homily, and I cut myself. And when I walked into the sacristy, someone looked at me. They were looking at me kind of funny, actually, and I thought, well, I know because I have this little piece of toilet paper here on my face, trying to hide it, and hopefully it'll stop bleeding before Mass begins. But they said, "Father, what happened?" I think it was pretty obvious what happened, but I said, well, I was thinking about my homily and I cut my face. And the person said, well, Father, maybe you need to think more about your face and cut your homily today. Yikes, I thought, wow. So we'll get right to the point today. Today, the gospel is about faith. It's about increasing our faith. How do we increase our faith? People have been asking this question for centuries. How do we increase our faith? And Jesus gives a response. All you need is a little bit of faith. You don't need a huge quantity of faith. I don't even know if you can quantify faith, but rather it is the quality of the faith. Because if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, it's very small. The mustard seed is the smallest of all seeds, which if nourished, if properly taken care of, if watered, if cultivated right, it's going to grow into the largest of trees and bushes. So think about that. Something so small becomes something very, very big. So faith is something that we don't quantify, but it's the quality of it. And Jesus says, have faith the size of a mustard seed, and you will be amazed at what is going to happen, because the quality of that faith will uproot the mulberry tree. People have had issues with faith and worried about how much faith they had for centuries. We can see this in the Old Testament reading today, which is from the prophet Habakkuk. Now, we don't know a whole lot about the prophet Habakkuk because there's no biographical information really about him, except that he probably lived and wrote around 600 years before the birth of Christ. And he wrote just 3 chapters. Our reading today is bits and pieces from those 3 chapters. There's a verse from the first chapter, there's 2 verses from the second chapter, and nothing from the third. But what do we hear from Habakkuk is really kind of talking about what was going on in his world at that time. And in his world at that time, the Babylonians were coming into the Hebrew people and overtaking them, exiling them. So they were being kicked out of their homeland, of their promised land. And so as a result, there was a lot of strife and suffering. And so Habakkuk, first of all, is complaining to God in this first chapter. And he has 2 complaints there to God. And he's talking about, why are you allowing this suffering? When is it going to change? Aren't we a good people? Are you going to respond? And so Habakkuk is frustrated. He was kind of a complainer, I guess you would say. But then we see how God responds. And God says to him, Habakkuk, you need to have a vision. You need to have a vision for what you want. What are you asking for? So have that vision. Don't act rashly and expect me to suddenly give you what you want right away. Because God, my friends, is not a genie in a bottle that we rub and suddenly the genie comes out and what do you want? What do you wish for? God is not like on the television show from the 1960s, I think it was called Bewitched with Elizabeth Montgomery, and she'd twinkle her nose, and all of a sudden, all this incredible stuff would happen. That's not God. God says, what are you asking for? Be clear. Don't just ask because of your wants. What are your desires? What's bigger? So second of all, he says, go to the tablet and write down or draw what this vision is. Take action. Sit down. The practice of journaling is a wonderful practice. Many people don't know how to do that, and they're scared. Maybe it's not part of our Catholic practice, but we can break the mold with that. I think in the bookstore, Matthew Kelly sells something called a Mass Journal. Really, after every Mass, what do you get out of it? Go home, write something down. Was there something from the music? Was there something from the readings? Was there something from the incredible homily maybe that you heard that touches your heart in some way that you want to remember? Write it down, concretize it. Don't just ask, but do something. This is also in support of our faith, because in James, which our Bible, our Catholic Bible, includes a verse that speaks of salvation comes from faith and works. It's not by faith alone. And this is hundreds of years before James even wrote that or was inspired to write it. And we hear how God tells Habakkuk, go ahead and have a vision, have faith, but put it into action and work on it as well. Third, he says, wait. Wait. And that's really a common theme throughout the scriptures. It's hard for us today to wait. You know, we want everything yesterday. You know, whether it be the best internet connection, or we get impatient waiting online. We get impatient very easily. We can get impatient with God. But that should not compromise our faith. God says, wait. The scriptures often have a theme of patient endurance. I think that's beautiful. I think that's something we like to teach our children, is patient endurance. When a child wants something, they want it like right away. You know that as parents who are bringing your children for for baptism today, the baby starts crying right away. You got to go and hurry up and get whatever they want. Patient endurance is something that is good to learn. It's good for us to learn it from an early on age. We are the children. God is the Father. And as the Father, He loves us. He's going to take care of us. We may not always get what we want, though, when we want it. So how do we take this and put it into our practice of our everyday life? It's to say, we need a vision for our spiritual life. You want to increase your faith? I can't just give that to you right away. There's no magic potion. There's no food to say, I'm going to eat this and it's going to get better. Well, that's something you have to embrace. That is something every person has, a deep, intimate, personal relationship with God the Father, God the Son, and God the Spirit. And so how do you increase your faith? It's having a vision for your spiritual life. What do you want your home to look like? What do you want the spirit of your home to be? Do you want a home where you pray? Do you want a home where God is sitting at your dinner table every evening? Do you want a home where you are happy to go into because you feel that it has the protection of Our Lady and of all of the saints? What a beautiful thought. Do you want a home that is a little bit of heaven on earth? I once heard it said, a happy, peaceful family is an early heaven. A happy family is an early heaven. Think about that for a moment. How does a family become happy? It takes work. It takes effort. It's not giving everybody what they want, but rather what they need. What are you asking for your home? What are you asking for your temple, for your spiritual home that God blessed you with? Write it down or talk to God about it. Kind of come up with a way to verbalize it in your prayer and be specific with Him. This is what He said to Habakkuk. Go and write it down on the tablet. What do you want? Concretize it, put it down in some way, and then wait patiently. And good things, my friends, good things come to those who wait. And especially when it comes to God. To remember that it's up to us to be patient with Him, how He's working in His time, not ours. We can have a little bit of heaven on earth. We can all have a little bit more faith, but we have to have a vision for what that is. What does that look like? This month we celebrate the Rosary every year in October. It is the month of the Rosary. This week, one of our celebrations is Our Lady of the Rosary. Perhaps something to do would be to say, in my faith, I want to increase my faith. I'm going to be a better prayer. Maybe I'll find out something about the Rosary. And maybe you're going to say, I know what I'll do this afternoon. It's Sunday. Today's the day of rest. It's a holy day. It's God's day. I'll pray all 20 mysteries of the Rosary. Good luck is what I would say, because I don't even know if the Pope does that every day. I mean, I have to say, I'm not sure if he would do that or not, but you might fall asleep around like the 12th mystery or so. That means God's telling you you need more rest. But maybe instead of having a vision that's not realistic, what about having a little rosary ring? Or look at how God gave us 10 fingers. He gave us a built-in rosary, my friends, right here in our hands. 10 fingers to be able to just sit and say, I'm just going to concentrate on one decade of the rosary today. Maybe every day take a decade of one of the mysteries, learn more about it, and pray an Our Father, 10 Hail Marys, and then the Glory Be. It's a little bit of an express rosary, but it's a start. It's a start, something small. We cannot have pie-in-the-sky dreams about faith if we're not willing to take the first step. Remember, it's just a mustard seed. But when cultivated, nurtured, cared for, it can grow into something incredible.